Well, this is it. The end of the year is finally here, and it's time for us to look back at all the animated films that came out. How would I describe 2025? Not a very eventful year, honestly. I'll give it credit that it was better than last year, which was truly awful due to the vast amount of stinkers, and because there were a lot more standout gems this year than there was in the previous year, but there were also a lot more of nothing movies that came out. Films that came and went, and ones you're probably never gonna see. Although some of the bad ones this year, woof. But we're not here to talk about the duds I saw, but rather the gems. And once again, it was time for me to pick out my 5 personal favorite mainstream animated films that I saw in 2025. And I confess that this was a bit trickier than last, but I think I made a decent selection. So that's what we're here to talk about. My 5 favorite animated movies of the year. And like always, this list is 100% subjective. Agree or disagree, that's totally fine. Film is a subjective art form after all. And for those curious on some of my thoughts on movies like Little Omni or The Character of Rain, the Demon Slayer movie, or The Colors Within, be sure to check out my Little Omni or The Character of Rain and more video for my thoughts on some of the indie and foreign films I saw last year. Anyway, let's not waste any more time. This is my top 5 best animated films of 2025. Number 5. Okay, I may or may not be technically cheating on this one because it is a film that was released in 2024 in some circles, but I didn't get to see this one until 2025 because of the way it was released here in America, so it is what it is. I mean, if I did see it last year, it easily would have made my top 5 that year, but hey, we might as well make up some lost time to give this movie the flowers it easily deserves. So, my number 5 is Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. For nearly 20 years, Aardman's most famous duo had been absent from the big screen due to Nick Park's creative frustration of the making of their last film, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which I talked about in a video essay if you want to learn more about, then it seemed like it was about time they were due for a comeback. And Vengeance Most Foul not only proved that they still had the clever wit and charm after their long absence, it proved that Aardman still had the ability to make a top-notch animated film with some witty commentary. This was not the first animated project this year that took a slam at the dangers of AI, but it sure was one of the most noteworthy, as it follows one of Wallace's prized inventions going haywire and featuring the dastardly return of arguably their greatest foe, the penguin Feathers McGraw. This was one of the most charming watches I had seen throughout the year that really showed Aardman working in top form and giving Wallace and Gromit a fun little journey of mishaps to partake in. The comedy is top-notch, as usual, the stop-motion animation is dazzling, and the commentary about the dangers of how AI can't fully replace a human touch are as strong and biting as ever. And of course, Feathers McGraw continuing to be one of the best animated villains ever created, with his evil presence really being felt over the film, even when he's not on screen. Also, the other big benefit of the film is just that it's straight up funny. Those Norbots are still some of the most funny characters I've seen this year, with how both charming and somewhat creepy they are. This is just a film that's really hard not to have fun with, and I just had a total blast seeing these old characters once again after so long. Whether or not you like this more than Were-Rabbit really comes down to personal preference. I've met people who prefer this, I've met people who prefer Were-Rabbit, but at the end of the day, it's Wallace and Gromit, and you can't just hate these two. I was more than happy to see them return to the big screen, and I'm also more than happy to finally give them flowers that they rightfully deserve. It's a cracking good time with some fun old friends. Number 4. Yeah, there were a lot of annoying trends that came out this year. I'm genuinely still baffled at that 6-7 meme. Like, I don't get it. What's the big deal of that? But I can tell you the one meme that was really the most anger-inducing to me, and that was the chicken jockey meme. For those that don't know, or for those whom are trying to forget, it's basically where people started to lose their goddamn minds while watching that Minecraft movie that came out this year, which, for the record, I hated. And I can say that trend was one of the most obnoxious things I've ever seen. Like, I think it's one thing to be cheering at something during a movie that makes you happy, but throwing a bunch of trash at the screen and going crazy like this, no. It's one thing to do it at an art house screening of something like Rocky Horror Picture Show or The Room, where this is encouraged, but doing this in a normal movie theater while people are just trying to enjoy the film, seriously, this is obnoxious, and I feel bad for the poor people who had to clean up these people's messes. Someone even brought a live chicken during this. Just terrible. The reason I bring this up is because I want to highlight the difference between a good movie screening where the crowd is respectful and having fun versus a bad one like that. And I can say if I had to highlight my favorite theater experience of the year, it was easily this. I was a ghost, I was alone. Yeah, you knew this was gonna be on here. It would be foolish of me to not include K-pop Demon Hunters, the biggest animated film of the year that dominated all records on Netflix and became the most talked about animated film Sony Pictures Animation has ever released. I don't think I've seen an animated musical get this big since Frozen, with the only exception being Encanto, and even that wasn't as big as this. There's a lot you can say about the phenomenon that came out of this film, but even if it didn't become one of the biggest film sensations of the year, I'd still feel quite confident putting it on this list because it really is that great. I still maintain that while films from Sony like The Mitchells vs. the Machines and the two Spider-Verse films probably show off their strengths a bit more than this does, there's no denying that the energy in this movie is just contagious. And there's a lot to love here. Its animation is incredible and has some hilarious anime influence. The story, while slightly messy, really does pack a punch thanks to its great third act and message about mental health. The characters are also lovable, with Huntrix being such a memorable and chaotic girl group. And, of course, the songs. Do I need to say more? So many great bangers in this soundtrack. How It's Done, Golden, Soda Pop, Takedown, What It's Like. These songs are also killer, and I'd be shocked if they didn't walk away with the Oscar this year. Though, I think if there's one thing that really did push this film over the edge for me that locked it on the list, it was easily getting to see this on a big screen. I've spoken extensively about how much I have grown to hate Netflix and streaming lately, so getting to see this film on a big screen with a bunch of happy fans, singing along to the songs, laughing at the jokes, just deeply connecting with the characters, it was something that movies are made for. Even if I do have some problems with the film that keep me from fully embracing it like some others do, I can't deny that the sparkle this film had on people is something truly magical to see. This film deserved the success it got, and I'm eager to see where Huntrix goes next in the sequel in a few years. Also, Sony, if you are listening, for the sequel, can you please take Huntrix to America on a world tour and have them battle demon pop stars on the lines of someone like Justin Bieber or Alex Warren? Please? I mean, the jokes can literally just write itself. I'm just saying. Number 3. 2025 was the year where we got a lot of animated films that were just silly and over the top. And this was something that I welcomed. Animation allows you to play around with the idea of going as over the top as possible, and it can lead to a lot of great stuff. Some of the films we got were really tons of fun, and some of them were not. But of all the Jacks, Queens, and Jokers that were in the deck of cards of silly over the top animated films this year, only one of them was the true king. I've said numerous times that The Bad Guys is top tier DreamWorks, and with its sequel, well, I'm still firmly standing by that opinion. In a decade where we have gotten a lot of disappointing animated sequels, The Bad Guys 2 was one of the few that I was genuinely hyped for, and it was a film that absolutely reached the hype, delivering everything I loved about the first film once again, and taking it to the next level as we see these former criminals just trying to go good and getting blackmailed into pulling off one last job for a new and rising criminal group. This is one of the most zany and over-the-top films that DreamWorks has ever released, and above all else, it's just incredibly fun. There are so many great moments with the twists and turns the story takes, which leads to one of the most insane third acts I've ever seen in an animated film, and filled with all sorts of hilarious jokes involving the characters. Every single one of them continues to shine, and all of them are built in a way that feels natural for them to grow, which includes having the characters face off a new set of villains whom are truly ruthless. Though, what ultimately locked the film in big time for it being on the list is the fact that it does what every great sequel should do. It continues the story so well by basically crafting a new tale from the ground up and putting the character through the ringer much harder than before. And it's one of the most airtight stories I've seen this year, with just the fact that the bad guys are truly not safe in this film. Also, it has some gorgeous animation and some hilarious moments during it, which was also a big bonus. This film really went the extra mile with its anime influence and embracing its over-the-top cartoony nature, and God, it was such a treat. I just love these Bad Guys films, as they always put me in a good mood and continue to highlight how much DreamWorks has grown in this decade alone. And considering this film also leaves the door open for Bad Guys 3, all I can say is, bring it on. The Bad Guys 2 is just so good. Number 2. Okay, I typically don't like to talk about the animated films that I didn't like at the end of the year because I want to make this channel a positive place. But I'm sorry, I have to get this off my chest. So, last month, there was an animated film that dropped on Netflix called In Your Dreams. You may know that I really did not like this film and that I gave it a pretty negative review. In retrospect, I might have been too kind because this film has honestly gotten so much worse for me over the past month. I really have grown to truly hate this movie because it is such a smarmy and insincere endeavor that really wants to be this truly heart-tugging animated film that aspires to be like Pixar, and only falls horribly flat on its face due to how uncreative it is and just how badly it handles its messages about divorce and dreams, that it comes across more toxic when you think about it. If there's anything this film has started to remind me of, it's probably Wonder Park. That's another animated Pixar wannabe that I disliked initially but didn't think was that horrible at first, but it only just grew so much more worse with time when I thought about it. If there's one thing I could get from this messy endeavor of watching either that or In Your Dreams, it was this. When it comes to animated films that really want to aspire to be on something on the levels of Pixar, it's best to leave it to Pixar themselves. I can imagine the surprise a lot of you had that Elio really made it this high on my list. It was not one of the biggest films of the year in terms of performance and even in terms of scale. But you know what? Sometimes I gotta let what my heart speaks for what's the best, and I cannot deny that I just truly love this film. And also, I find myself gravitating towards smaller films anyway than the bigger ones, so yeah, it is what it is. I'm not gonna pretend that it didn't have a bumpy road from its troubled production and the fact that people unfairly ignored it at the box office, but I can say it really genuinely deserves so much better because it is truly a very special and well-crafted film. No one can make movies that are as heartfelt and honest as Pixar, and Elio is no exception. This is a film that wears its sci-fi influence proudly on its sleeves as it follows a young boy desperate to fit in, getting abducted by aliens, and finding himself meeting the creatures that truly accept whom he is, and it's just such a dazzling and emotionally riveting ride. You really just feel the journey that Elio goes through as he's such a well-developed and charming child protagonist portrayed very wonderfully by Jonas Kabrib, and there's a lot of sweet moments that leap out from the screen as we see him finally try to come to terms on whom he is as a character with the aliens he meets along the way, and the fun he has in the Communiverse. Speaking of that, this is probably one of the most dazzling animated films that came out this year that has some incredible production design and creative character designs, all while having a ton of laughs, a ton of emotions, and just a ton of fun. As I said before, this movie deserved so much better, because Pixar can still dazzle in a way most animation studios fail to even come close to. I can imagine in a few years, this film will absolutely become a cult classic, because it's one whose beauty and emotion really will speak out to a lot of people. Namely, kids just desperately trying to find themselves. Elio is a special film waiting to be discovered, and I know it's one that really reaches into the stars. Now, before I get to my number one pick, here are a couple honorable mentions. Don't have that many this year, but these are the ones I really liked. Oh man, this one really hurt to cut. The Day the Earth Blew Up was the last cut I had to make for this list, and believe me, it was painful. This was one of the funniest animated films that I saw this year, and one that finally did the Looney Tunes justice on the big screen. The animation is exceptionally wacky and over the top, there's tons of laughs aplenty, and above all else, it escaped the wrath of David Zaslav and got released on the big screen. What's not to love about this one? Also, speaking of silly animated films, we may not have gotten that Captain Underpants sequel, but Dog Man was more than enough to make up for it. It was a nice return to the world of Dave Pilkey, filled with some stylish animation, some really goofy and clever humor, and above all else, a very strong heart. The stuff with Little Petey was such a treat, and some of the most charming and warm animated writing I've seen this year. Also, Pete Davidson is really good in this film too. I hope he's getting the conversation for the Annie Awards for Best Voice Acting this year. And finally, Predator Killer of Killers. Dan Trachtenberg really continued to pump some serious adrenaline and interesting ideas into this franchise, with this new animated anthology really being a wild ride, with a lot of great bloody action, stylish animation, and also some seriously strong storytelling. If you're looking for a great adult animated film to check out from this year, make it this one. Okay, let's get to the best one. Number 1. I typically don't like to brag about myself, but next year is my 10th year anniversary of doing this job, and it's really insane to think about. I started doing this merely as a hobby when I was in high school because I was still trying to figure out myself and had no idea what I was going to do with my life, and if you told me 10 years later I would still be reviewing animated films and that it would change my life for the better, I wouldn't have believed you. It's been a crazy journey that I am really just utterly thankful for, and I've seen a lot of great movies that really inspired me over these past few years. But as I've said before, my number 1 pick is almost always the animated film that really speaks out to me the most this year. The one that just absolutely grabs my heart. And it only makes sense that my favorite mainstream animated film of the year was the sequel to the film that made me the critic I am all those years ago. Come on, get on up. We're wild and we can't be tamed, and we're turning the floor into yeah, I'm predictable, aren't I? Look, I can't help it. I adore Zootopia a whole lot, and Zootopia 2 really is just as good as its predecessor. It's been no secret that Walt Disney Animation Studios has had a rough decade so far, and I actually haven't put a film officially on my top 5 since 2021. And even though I do adore the first Zootopia as much as I do, it wasn't hard to be slightly worried on how this new sequel could have turned out, especially after the disappointing Moana sequel the year before. But you can imagine just the relief I felt walking out of the theater with a massive smile on my face, knowing that not only did Zootopia 2 meet the hype I was hoping for, but also that Disney Animation finally made their best film in years. And man, is this film just so good. What is there to say about this sequel that I haven't said before? It really does build big time upon its story, flipping the history of the city upside down while not sugarcoating its themes about the ugly truths of the world. It's just as dazzling as before with its gorgeous animation and lavish character designs. And of course, the characters. I cannot stress this enough. This film is just so well written, and the main beating heart of the film is easily Nick and Judy's relationship. It doesn't work without it, and it's easily one of the strongest dynamics I've seen all year. This is a sequel that knows exactly how to take what was learned about the predecessor while ripping it up and just building something new on top of it. Other sequels just seem to think they need to be bigger, but Zootopia 2 knows it has to be better. And that's exactly what a great sequel should be like. Not to mention, it also gave me the excitement for a third Zootopia, which the film teased at the end and is already seemingly being worked on at the studio. Though, if anything, this film did something that I really especially needed to see this year. It gave me hope. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. 2025 was a bit of a rough year for everyone, including myself. The various bad news in the film world and just in general was draining, and I can't say that I didn't get anxious a lot this year, especially knowing how dire things could have gotten. And I think this film couldn't have come out at a better time for me because it gave me plenty of hope that I needed. Hope that Disney animation can really make great movies again after a drought. Hope that sequels don't have to be lackluster and disappointing. And the hope that movies can still be as powerful and bold at a time where we need great art more than ever. This gave me the same feelings I had with Inside Out 2 last year. It was a sequel to a film that meant so much to me as a nervous teen, and knowing that both got follow-ups that were easily what my anxious 15-year-old self would have needed, that was something I'm just grateful for. It may not have been an important film for some people, but it was important for me. And honestly, going into 2026, I want to keep that hope stronger than before, because we need it more than ever. And I have a feeling the films that we're getting are going to be just as promising as this. Zootopia 2, my personal favorite animated film of 2025. And with that, we have officially concluded 2025. So let's see what's on the docket for 2026. Looks cute enough. Give it to me now! Has some surprising potential. I'm actually optimistic for this. There's promise here. God, I'm so happy this got saved and is coming out. Ooh, this could be top tier for DreamWorks. Hey, can't go wrong with more Shaun the Sheep. Might be fun. My curiosity has very much grown on this one. Oh yeah, that's happening. Could be fun too. I really hope this is finally coming out next year. And this one as well. So what do you know, we do have a promising slate of animated films in the new year. It should be a fun journey, and I'm eager to take you all on that ride. So, I wish you all the very best new year, and I'll see you all in 2026. Till next time, folks.